Before the beep of the microwave, kitchens moved to a different rhythm altogether. Imagine an ordinary British home, early evening light on the worktop, radio murmuring softly, nothing flashing or counting down. Meals didn't begin with tearing open boxes or packets. They began with hands, time, and attention. Vegetables were washed, pans warmed, and patience was part of the recipe. Today, we rush from moment to moment, chasing convenience without thinking twice. But back then, food asked something of us first. So how did we live like that every day? And when did it slip away without us noticing? To understand how Britain ate, we have to return to a time when cooking wasn't a statement. It was simply life. In the years after the war, habits formed around necessity, thrift, and routine. Kitchens were modest, cupboards predictable, and meals planned days ahead, not decided on a whim. Shopping meant a weekly walk to familiar shops, where produce followed the seasons, and nothing arrived by surprise. People cooked from scratch because there was no real alternative. You worked with what you had, stretching ingredients carefully, learning which meals could feed many mouths, and still feel generous. Leftovers weren't an idea, they were an expectation. Nothing was wasted, not from virtue alone, but from lived experience. Compared with today's endless choice, the food itself was often simple, even repetitive. Yet effort was built into every stage, from peeling to simmering, from planning to sharing. That effort shaped daily life, anchoring families to routine and time. And it's within that ordinary rhythm that the real story of British food quietly begins. Those kitchens may look distant now, but their influence lingers, waiting to be remembered as we step closer to the sounds, smells, and habits of everyday cooking back then together. The rhythm of the British kitchen began long before anyone thought about sitting down to eat. Mornings set the tone, with quiet preparation that felt almost automatic. Notes were scribbled on scraps of paper, recipes remembered rather than read, passed down through habit more than instruction. As the day unfolded, the house slowly filled with familiar smells, comforting and expected, marking time better than any clock. Meals followed the hour hand, not convenience. Tea was ready because it was tea time, not because someone was hungry. Saucepans bubbled gently while homework was done at the table. Radios played softly, and life carried on around the stove. Cooking wasn't an event. It was background music to everyday living. Today, food often fits around our schedules. Back then, schedules bent around the meal. That quiet discipline grounded households, giving shape to ordinary days. And within that steady rhythm, something else was happening too. A sense of order, comfort, and belonging that quietly held families together in ways we recognize looking back now. It often began with a quiet clatter, the rattle of pans, the whistle of the kettle, the soft thud of a chopping board on the counter. Long before microwaves hummed or apps pinged with takeaway offers, British kitchens moved to a gentler rhythm. Meals weren't events, they were part of the day's fabric. You might remember the smell of onions gently sweating in the pan, the slow roast that filled the house by mid-afternoon, or the batter being whisked in a glass bowl with a fork. No gadgets, just hands and time. Recipes lived in heads or on cards smudged with gravy stains. It was less about precision. Children would come home from school to the warm scent of tea cooking, maybe a stew or fish pie on the hob, and always something on the go. Nothing rushed, but everything mattered. There was comfort in that rhythm, the predictability of routine, the satisfaction of making something from scratch. And as the day wound on, that quiet orchestration led to one special moment when everyone gathered round the table. It didn't happen all at once. There was no grand announcement, no sudden switch. But gradually, quietly, the shape of our kitchens and our meals began to shift. It might have started with a packet mix on a busy weekday, or a tin promising a meal in minutes. Advertisements spoke of ease, of saving time, tempting, in a world that was speeding up. Freezers arrived, and with them, ready-made meals wrapped in shiny boxes that felt oddly futuristic. Fridges grew bigger, cookers more modern. The slow, steady rituals gave way to timers, buttons, and shortcuts. Fewer people asked, "What's for tea?" Hours in advance they didn't need to. And while some traditions clung on, the quiet arrival of convenience slowly redefined our expectations. Home-cooked meals didn't vanish overnight, but bit by bit, they were nudged aside. Not out of laziness, but because life itself was changing pace. And as the pace changed, something else shifted to the meaning of mealtimes. We didn't see it slipping away, not really, because at the time, it felt like progress. Faster meals meant more free time, less fuss, fewer dishes in the sink. But tucked inside those old food routines was something quietly powerful. There was patience in letting things simmer. There was togetherness in peeling veg at the table or passing down a recipe by doing, not reading. There was pride, not flashy or showy, just the quiet satisfaction of making something that filled both belly and home. Cooking from scratch wasn't always easy, but it anchored the day, shaped family rhythms, and gave a kind of certainty that's hard to measure. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the time we gave to it and to each other. And perhaps, in trading that time for convenience, we left more behind than we realized. But the echoes of it, they're still there, if you know where to look. It's a gentle question, isn't it? Could we ever find our way back not to the past, but to the parts of it that still matter? We may not all have the time for daily roasts or bubbling stews, but maybe it's not about recreating the full picture. Maybe it's about slowing down every now and then, cooking a simple meal, sitting together, no screens, no rush. The world's different now, but the comfort of a shared table, the smell of something homemade that hasn't gone anywhere. Perhaps in small ways, we already know the answer.